Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Med School Minutes podcast, where we discuss what it takes to attend and successfully complete a medical program. This show is brought to you by St. James School of Medicine. Here is your host, Kaushik Guha.
Thank you so much for joining another episode of Med School Minutes, where we talk about everything MD with a focus on international students, specifically Caribbean students. I'm on the beautiful sunny island of Anguilla, and today I have Dr. Iliou with me, who is the Dean of our Anguilla campus, and we are really excited to have him. I'm really excited to be here, so thank you so much for having me, Dr. Iliou.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for making time for our show. We really appreciate it. So, at the end of the day, we kind of want to zero in on what a dean does, what a dean means to the school, what being a dean to St. James means, and what's a day in your life. But before that, just give us a sense of who you are. Like, what got you interested in medicine, your background. Let's not, this is just a 25-30 minute podcast, so we don't have time for your entire background because it is extremely illustrious. But we'll get the Cliff's Note versions of it. And then, we just kind of want to know how, what your experience has been with St. James and its students. So where are you originally from?
I was born in Haiti.
Okay.
And my grandfather was also a doctor.
Oh, okay.
And so my parents wanted me to be a doctor. I wanted to be a scientist.
Okay.
And so as I grew up, I was always interested in science and math. But after I graduated from MIT, I realized that maybe medicine might be a better choice than science, than pure science.
Okay.
But at the time, I was really much more into the pure science than into applied.
Okay.
So I considered medicine like an applied science.
Okay.
And went to medical school at Howard University. Mm-hmm. And then while I was there, I did internal medicine, and then I specialized in anesthesiology. Okay. And after that, I practiced for about 10 years in South Florida, and had set up some very interesting clinics there.
Okay.
And also did some what do you call that? Patient support groups.
Okay.
And some patient support groups. So it was very, I found it very interesting and very rewarding to do that. But ultimately, I realized that teaching was my love. So I taught in many other medical schools, but after the earthquake in Haiti, I came back to the United States, and I was trying to decide what to do. Decided to come here because you had just opened up the school here. And so I have been pretty much here since 2010 and the Dean of Basic Sciences shortly after that, early 2011.
Okay, well, that's excellent. What was your undergrad in MIT? What did you?
I majored in nutritional sciences and biochemistry. So it's like biochemistry, nutritional sciences. They have course numbers. It was course 20.
Okay.
So that's what I did. I did a lot of research. I worked at Mass General Hospital doing research on adrenergic receptors. Okay. Which I found very fascinating. I was always interested in the autonomic nervous system, especially autonomic pharmacology, which is one of my loves right now. Okay.
And, as you've mentioned, you've taught at several medical schools. And what's the broad range of subjects that you've taught?
Wow. Molecular biology, I've taught pharmacology, physiology, neuroscience, pathology. Did I say pharmacology?
Yes, you did.
And then, and now here I'm teaching the MD5 review course
So you basically spanned so for viewers who don't have a medical background, I just want to highlight that being able to teach such a broad range of subjects is very difficult. You have to have such an incredible understanding. So it's like if you are building a house, you're the architect, you're the contractor, you are like being the dean. I'm guessing you're practically the house cleaner and housekeeper as well. Everything, right?
There's a wide range of duties that I engage in on a daily basis to keep the school running. And teaching is probably my favorite part.
Okay.
But a lot of the administrative stuff I just have to do.
Right.
Grades.
Right.
Writing checks.
Right. Yeah, I definitely know that. Yeah.
And counseling other professors.
Okay.
Talking to students, doing academic advising to students. Right. I've even done some tutoring for students.
Right.
But and I actually enjoy that.
Right.
But it's time consuming.
Right. Of course.
And I wish I had more time to do it, but I don't. But to keep the school running, I also have a variety of other deans that work with me and my faculty. And so probably the most important thing for me is to maintain a good faculty.
Right.
Because without a good faculty, my work becomes harder.
Right.
It's twice as long
right.
and much more difficult.
Right. So how involved are you in the selection process of faculty members?
I am pretty involved. I interview all the faculty before
okay.
I get before they are hired.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't want them, then they don't come here.
Okay.
I believe that one of the important things that I look for in faculty is not just competence
mm-hmm.
in their subject, but how well they get along with others,
mm-hmm.
How well they interact, whether they show professionalism, and that they have a good sense of humor, because you need one here.
Right. So, and obviously you've studied at MIT, you studied at Howard, you've been in the United States for how many years were you actually in, and you practiced in South Florida for 10 years. How many years were you in the United States?
I went to the United States when I was 7 years old.
Okay. And then
then I did all my education there, I practiced there. I went back to Haiti in 2004 for a few years.
Okay.
And that's where I taught also in French at several medical schools there.
Oh, wow.
And then the earthquake happened in 2010, which sent me back to the US.
So was there an adjustment for you going from US, which is one of the richest countries in the world, to Haiti, which from a sheer economic standpoint has one of the lowest GDPs in the world?
Yes.
Was that a challenge for you?
It was, but it was a challenge I enjoyed.
Okay.
It was a challenge I enjoyed. And, the funny thing was that I really did not expect to go there and spend as much time there.
Okay.
And one of my cousins also teaches at one of the medical schools. And so he invited me to come and teach.
Okay.
So it was really his idea. And I said, I know medicine, I know French, right? What could go wrong? Well, let me tell you, those French have got a different word for everything.
Okay. Oh, really?
There were a lot of medical terms that did not translate quite so easily.
Okay.
And so it was a bit of a struggle.
Wow. So even the terminology, so for example, mitochondria was a completely different word in French. They don't call it mitochondria?
Well, that one was pretty close.
Okay.
But things like anion gap.
Okay. Okay.
Even after I was told what the translation was, it still didn't make any sense to me. So yeah, there were certain terms that I really had to learn. And there were a lot of the textbooks that I was familiar with that nobody used in Haiti.
Oh, okay.
So I actually had to write a lot of the material that I was going to teach and print it out and make it available to the students.
Okay. Wow.
So I did a lot of writing in French, which was also an experience.
Right.
My French got a lot better after doing that. So it really, it really put me to the task.
Well, that's excellent. And from the style of education, obviously Haiti is not teaching U.S. style medicine, as you mentioned, or at least their curriculum is not geared towards the USMLEs.
They're not geared towards the USMLE, but the material is very much similar.
Okay.
So in physiology, it was similar material that I taught. They had a physiology lab, which we don't hear.
Okay.
And that was actually quite interesting.
Okay.
So we got to experience, teaching the students how to take blood pressures.
Okay.
What we do here in PDI, they were doing in physiology lab.
Oh, okay. Interesting. And so obviously you've had experience working and teaching in USA, now Haiti, and then you made a switch to Anguilla. Was that because your fluency in French and you're so close to St. Martin, there's French speaking? Did that have anything to do with that?
I wanted to continue teaching because I really enjoyed it. And I liked the warm weather in the Caribbean. Who doesn't?
Yeah, you've always stayed right around Florida, Haiti.
Yes,
you definitely like warm weather.
And I actually had applied to several different schools in the Caribbean, but this one was a school that was just starting.
Right.
And my idea was if I could enter the school right at its beginning, I would have the maximum opportunity to guide the changes and the decisions in the school. So that's why I chose.
This well, and I mean, guide you have definitely, as you know, we've grown. When we started in 2010, we had one building. Today we had two. We have a lot of students coming in, and our scores, our match rate, everything keeps improving day on day. And you're an integral part of that. I mean, there's no denying that. There's no beating around the bush about it. The leadership that you provide leads to better faculty, leads to better students, and leads to better student performance. As you mentioned, despite your busy schedule, you've actually made customized study plans for not just one or two students, several hundred students. Can you tell us a little bit about what that process is and what that means to you?
This is very important to me because I don't believe that students are cookie cutter versions of each other. I believe that each student brings something different into medicine and has strengths and weaknesses that are different from other students.
Right.
And maybe some of that is where they went to undergrad, what courses they took. Some of that is what their particular enjoyment is and what interests them about medicine. So everybody's going to be different. And so when you have a student who is trying to prepare for the USMLE Step 1, it is important to be able to properly assess where they are and identify their strengths and weaknesses, and then design a customized study plan for them that's going to address their weaknesses and use their strengths to get to them to where they need to be. And so this is an important thing. Not only is this done with, questions and Q banks and assessments and study material, but also it is important to identify whether students have any issues that are non-academic that impact their performance. Study their test-taking skills, their sleeping habits, their eating habits, their stress reliever methodology or mechanisms. And so all of this plays an important role in creating the best plan for a student to succeed, because we really are very different. And so what works for one could work great. I mean, that student could could have improved 3,000%, but that doesn't mean it will not work for the next student.
Right.
Because they have different.
Right. So have you ever actually have to go in and tell the student, you need to sleep less, or you need to spend less time doing this, or you need to...
Oh, yes.
Really?
Absolutely.
Do you have an example?
Usually I tell them to sleep more, not less.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because one of the biggest problems that I encounter here, I mean, after 12 years, I can tell you, is that students will not sleep prior to an exam. That just is stupidity for me. Because when you're so tired, you just make stupid mistakes. You know, you cannot think. I mean, yes, those extra 3 hours that you crammed, you think is going to help, but the fatigue works completely against that, and probably works, you know, they could have done better if they had gotten enough sleep.
I mean, that makes complete sense.
Yeah. So that's one example of some of the things that I have to counsel my students about and discuss with them and try to help them realize works against them in the long struggle to master medicine. Right.
And so you've obviously dealt with so many students, and I don't know, by my guess, it would probably be close to the thousands, possibly in the 12 years. And even before that, there were probably other schools and universities. And I just wanted to highlight this little tidbit that you were telling me, that a student from the first year that the school had opened is in Anguilla, and she dropped into your office to say hi. You're very much in touch, and I believe you're taking her out to dinner tonight, her and her family. I mean, that's such an amazing story.
Yes,
and the student graduated, 12 years ago, right?
Well, she entered St. James 12 years ago. She graduated
10 years ago.
7 or 8 years ago.
So nearly a decade ago, she's an accomplished physician. And definitely check out the episode. We are trying to talk to her as well, and we'll have a nice holistic view how Dr. Iliou influenced her journey. So, but 10 years, I mean, to be honest, I barely remember what I ate yesterday. And so to have an impact to that extent, that after a decade, a person comes back, and after being as accomplished as she is, she comes and she wants to stay in touch and meet you. I mean, and that's just speaks volumes of of your contribution to all the lives that you're touching. That's really amazing. The other thing I did want to highlight is, obviously you have had experience in Haiti. You worked in some other schools around, internationally, and you've worked with U.S. students as well. How do you think the students at St. James, or the current students that you have, really compares to this international experience that you have? Are they better? Are they worse? Are St. James students, do you think that they have a disadvantage over students who are studying in the U.S.? What's your take on this?
I don't think that they have a disadvantage. After they graduated and became doctors, nobody asked them why they went to medical school. You know, I believe that you can't put all students in one category. So I would have difficulty saying students from this school are better than students from this school, because each student is different, and each brings different drives and ambitions and patience and amount of studying and background education. So all those things play a role. I don't believe that it would be fair to say that to generalize that students from one school are better than the others. I have had students from this school that were just amazing. That I wish I could clone. Because they were just, so wonderful.
Right.
And I just watched their, like, from the beginning, the trajectory just, shoot up and just take off. And it's so rewarding for me, I'm so proud of these students, like Emily.
Right.
But all of them, I mean, I really get a lot out of watching this. And hopefully I can follow them after they leave and they become doctors, like
right. Emily's kids,
you know. But this has also happened in other medical schools that I've taught in. But because I've taught here the longest, I have probably
the most connections.
Yeah, the most connections and the most stories.
Excellent. So, how does the medical system in Haiti, or the education, compare to medical system in a Caribbean school or even in the U.S. school? Because the U.S. and the Caribbean school are essentially teaching the exact same thing. The curriculum is comparable, if not identical. And Haiti, how does that work? How is that working?
Well, Haiti is like the English system or the Indian system, where you enter medical school right after high school.
Okay.
So they get, I guess, what would be the equivalent of an MBBS.
Okay.
And because of that, the students tend to be more immature because they're younger.
Okay.
They tend to be fresher out of education, so the transition is a lot smoother compared to some students that have been, working as nurses or EMTs or some other field, and they've not really studied for 5-10 years.
Okay.
And then come back to school. There's a bit of a rust that they have to shed.
Okay.
In the learning process.
Right.
Whereas when you transition straight from high school,
they're more pliable.
Yeah, it's a little more pliable, but there's probably good points and bad points.
Okay.
Both.
Okay. Do you think that U.S. or even any of the Caribbean schools will have a 5-year program? Because it seems like the 5-year program is something that is not taken off in the U.S. or the Caribbean structures either.
I actually like what we do here at St. James. And I'll tell you why I like it. Because, again, everybody is different. And there are those that have other obligations other than being full-time medical students. And so the flexibility that they find at St. James allows them to work their way around this without negatively impacting their education.
Okay.
So you can stretch out the basic sciences if necessary. You can also, modify the amount of time that you spend in the clinical sciences if there are a number of problems that arise. I've had students who have taken time off because they wanted to have children. And so the last couple of months, they decided not to do rotation or delay the rotation.
Okay.
Others that decided that they wanted to do also a master's in public health or some other degree alongside an MD, and so are able to manage this a lot better with the flexibility that St. James offers.
Okay. So what was your experience with general life? Like when you came in, was it too small, too big? Too safe, not enough hustle and bustle, too much hustle and bustle? What was your experience?
No, I had lived in a lot of different places in my life, from New York City to like very rural areas.
Right.
And previous to that, I had been spending several years in Haiti.
Right.
So the infrastructure here was decidedly better.
Okay.
So that was a step in the right direction.
Well, Haiti is a huge country, though.
It is a huge country,
and comparatively, you think Anguilla is better?
Comparatively, the infrastructure is better.
Okay.
And although there are some places in Haiti that are relatively cool, like the tops of mountains,
right?
In the city and at sea level, it is stifling hot.
Oh, okay.
Because there is a lot of humidity and not so much wind.
Okay.
Whereas here, it's very windy. There's always a breeze, and so you never feel hot.
Okay.
Here, even if the sun is blazing and there's not a cloud in the sky, and so it tends to be somewhat more pleasant. But
okay.
I arrived here, and within a week of my arrival, there was a hurricane.
Oh.
And we had the power knocked out for about 3 days.
Wow.
But that didn't discourage me. I had been through hurricanes before.
Yeah, and apparently earthquakes.
Yeah. And so over the course of the last 10 years, I could say that I really enjoyed this.
Okay.
I met my wife here. I got married here.
Yes, and you guys are definitely Anguilla's power couple, that's for sure. So that's excellent. And what about recreation? Did you get bored staying in Anguilla, or what do you think people can like? What's your typical Saturday and Sunday with you and your wife?
Sometimes I play golf. So you'll either play golf on a Saturday or...
How many golf resorts does Anguilla have?
It has one.
Okay.
It's one golf resort, but it's expanding. And so it had traditionally 18 holes. Now they're adding a 9-hole executive course.
Okay.
That should be ready maybe later this year or early next year.
Okay. And mind you, this is a world-class golf resort. Yeah. This is not some rinky-dink golf resort. This is huge. It's run by who's the parent company that runs this?
It's owned by Schultz, who is the owner of Best Buy in the U.S. And he decided that on his bucket list, he wanted to have like one of the top 100 golf courses in the world. So he bought the resort, which was, and then he remodeled it. You know? Okay. So
did it need remodeling in your opinion?
A little bit. But, but the golf course needed an update.
Okay.
So the golf course definitely needed an update, but he's put a lot of money into it. And Aurora is now just really stellar.
Okay. And what else? So golf is one.
Golf. We like to go snorkeling. Or boating.
Yeah.
On Sundays, I usually make one of my famous brunches at home.
Okay.
And invite, people over.
Well, still haven't gotten an invitation for that yet. We're going to wait on that.
Yeah.
I'll be back soon again, Now a good reason to come back. So you cooking is something. What about availability of ingredients? Like if you want to make,
you can find everything here.
Okay.
It's sometimes it's a struggle. It's not like going to Publix.
Okay.
back in the States.
Okay.
Or whatever shopping center that you're used to. But you can find pretty much everything.
Okay.
And if you can't, you hoard it.
Okay. But I think generally speaking, even my experience has been, I've been to the stores here. There's pretty much everything you need. Yeah. I mean, you might have to hold off on particularly unique recipes, but the other interesting thing is that the freezer aisles are a little light here, but that's almost by design, it looks like, because everything's fresh here. The food is fresh.
There's a lot of fresh food.
Yeah.
There are some farms here that grow stuff, so you can really get it.
Okay, farm to table almost.
Wow. Farm to table. And the food here is really quite amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of nice restaurants. We go to restaurants when we can.
Yeah.
And that's also...
And what would you think is your favorite dish here? Like, in Anguilla, is there something unique to Anguilla? Because I've noticed here is that, and I'm going to be honest, the food quality in Anguilla exceeds at restaurants. And I'm talking about even smaller local restaurants that probably don't really have much seating or hole in the walls. The food quality seems to be a lot better than in the United States. It may not be, the hole in the wall places may not be incredibly fancy, but they're great. And at the same time, I've noticed, I've been to the Four Seasons here, the quality, standard, ambience, I mean, everything seems to be far better than anything you would get in the United States, just period.
Yeah, I do feel pretty spoiled here.
Okay.
But my favorite dish is probably crayfish.
Oh, really? And that's big here?
And it's fresh here. Okay. And it is so much more tender than the lobster.
Okay.
And when they give it to you, you get like 8 crayfish.
Okay. So how big are they here? Because in the U.S. they're kind of...
Crayfish are probably about this big.
Oh, they're much bigger than the ones we get in the U.S.
They're this big, No, they're this big, and they split them and then bake them or broil them or whatever.
Okay.
And imagine you've got like 8 of those.
Oh, wow.
It's like unbelievable.
That is really amazing.
Yeah.
And as far as crayfish in the U.S. is concerned, I mean, they do it like, etouffee or a gumbo. Here they just straight bake it?
Yeah, they cook it in the shell.
Okay.
And with some butter and maybe some seasoning but because it's so fresh, it's so delicious.
Awesome.
It really melts in your mouth.
And, one thing we didn't really talk about was the fact that you are maybe a 15-minute boat ride from St. Martin, which is one of the most developed and prosperous islands in the Caribbean. So if you really are in a pinch and need something, how easy or hard is it to just get to St. Martin and get stuff?
Yeah. Well, my wife used to go to St. Martin before COVID.
Yeah.
Just go like once a month, go to the Super U there and like buy food, bring it back, and the vegetables and lettuce and stuff that she brings back would stay fresh for like weeks.
Oh, wow.
It was just amazing, yeah.
So there's nothing wanting in this. I mean, you have the smaller life because it's a smaller population. It's like 14,000 here in Anguilla, I believe. Is that right?
That's right.
And then at the same time, you have these ultra fancy resorts with their restaurants. You have the small mom and pop restaurants, and then you have grocery stores. But if there is a deficiency in the grocery stores and you need something in a pinch, you could it's like a 10-minute boat ride. For me, I mean, it takes more time to get from home to work than that. I mean, and you just get there, go to St. Martin.
But I'm telling you, the best thing about Anguilla is the lack of traffic. You know, I get from one end of the island to the other in about 20 minutes.
Wow.
It is so easy. I'm so spoiled in that regard that when I go anywhere else, I have to consider, do I really want to drive?
That's awesome. So if you go from Anguilla to St. Martin, St. Martin's obviously a bigger island. Do you think traffic's much worse there?
Oh, much worse.
Really? Okay.
But I always drive.
Right,
So I do rent a car.
Okay.
Right? We've got this guy, Lesroy.
Okay.
Because it's his car.
Okay.
We rent one of his cars.
Okay.
And then we drive around.
Okay.
But, yeah, traffic.
Okay. Do you personally spend a lot of time in St. Martin? Or have you?
No, we go on weekends there or, usually for the day, but sometimes we go for a couple of days.
Okay.
But I wouldn't say a lot of time. I would much rather spend time here. The beaches are better here.
Okay. Oh, really? The beaches are better than St. Martin?
Oh, by far.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really... so if I'm not mistaken, I did read in some magazine that, like, I was looking at the top 10 beaches in the world, and Anguilla had, like, 3 of them. So I was like, at that time I hadn't really heard of Anguilla. But then it seems to be a very consistent trait. But I would think that St. Martin had better beaches just because it's a bigger island, maybe more shoreline. I don't know. But Anguilla has better beaches.
We have 32 beaches here.
What?
There are 32
beaches. I mean,
32 beaches.
That's crazy.
And I don't know how many there are in St. Martin, but I would be, and I've been to most of them.
Okay. And which one's your favorite?
In St. Martin?
No, here.
Here? Oh. Meads Bay is wonderful. No, Mondays Bay is my favorite. Mondays Bay is by far my favorite. It is so calm and so beautiful.
Okay.
It's gotta be.
All right, I gotta try and check it out. I mean, I don't think I haven't had much time to go down to the beach, but hopefully tomorrow we can get some time. But when students come here, students complain a lot about, it's not like America. It's missing this, it's missing that. I mean, you've heard these complaints several times.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you give to that student?
Well, I would say enjoy the difference that you experience here. No, it isn't always like America.
Right.
And but sometimes that's better. And
100%.
And just the experience will give you a new perspective.
Right.
And you can benefit and enjoy that.
Okay.
Same thing when you go on vacation, you don't usually go somewhere else, spend all this money to find exactly the same thing that you had back home.
Right.
There are differences.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, if you spend all that money and you go to a new place, you want that experience, right?
Yes,
Why would you want it to be identical to what you left behind? That doesn't make sense. But one last question before we let you go. With 32 beaches, and it seems like most of them are like stellar. Isn't that a distraction for students? And
I thought it would be, but I don't think so.
Okay.
There are certainly students that go to the beach on weekends, but they don't cut classes to go to the beach. And those that do are going because they need some time. They need a break from studying. And so that's perfect. Actually, it's a great way to de-stress and take some time off from studying.
Right.
Go to the beach, do a little swimming. Walk the beach. The sand is unbelievable.
Yeah. Oh wow.
And
so I actually spoke to a couple of students today, and they said that on weekends they go to the beach to study because they said some of the beaches are so secluded.
Yes, that's true.
They're the only person there. So they come out, study. If they get tired of studying, they just go for a swim, come back, and they spend like 8-9 hours studying and hanging out on the beach.
On the beach, yeah.
That sounds like idyllic. Like it's like paradise. I mean, I think Anguilla is paradise for sure, but this is really amazing. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Iliou. Thank you so much for everything you've done for St. James. Thank you so much you've done for the students. Thank you so much for what you will do for the students. And I know you always have your hands full and you're super busy. And thank you so much for making time and coming on to our show. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. And as I always say, there's no shortcut to being a doctor. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for tuning into our show. We hope you enjoyed another episode of Med School Minutes. If you like our content, please follow us and receive notification when a new show is posted. This podcast is brought to you by St. James School of Medicine. For a video version of this podcast, please check us out on sjsm.org/video.